Well, hi, students at Point University. It's an honor to have the opportunity to address you for a few minutes. I want to start off by thanking our friend and your professor, Valarie, who does such a tremendous job for us at Point University. I have been a beneficiary of the quality of her work as full-time faculty there, and it's a special privilege for me to get the opportunity to pipe into your course experience this semester. A little bit about me. My name is Joshua Rice, and most folks around Point know me as a full-time faculty member, as I said before, an instructor of biblical studies. I became an adjunct at Point back in 2014, and about a year and a half later, in February of this year, they graciously invited me to join the full-time staff there, and I absolutely love it. I love our university, I love our mission, and I love you. I love our students, and I have such tremendous respect for those of you who are going through this rigorous process of college education. I want to say more about that in just a minute because it connects to my history and my bio. I'll try to be brief, but I want you to know a little bit about me. I went to college. I grew up here in the Atlanta area. I went to college at Lee University, just outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I studied Bible and theology. Realized that I didn't know this at the time, but realized I really had a passion for studying the Bible alongside a calling to youth ministry. So after I was in college, I was able to land a job at a small church back in the Atlanta area and enrolled in Columbia Theological Seminary in Decatur, which is Presbyterian, and continued to emerge as a youth minister, a first-time youth minister alongside my seminary education. After graduating from Columbia, I had the opportunity to move to Chicago and to work at the denominational executive level for my denomination, which is the Church of God, headquartered in Cleveland, Tennessee. If you've never heard of us, we're a lot like our brothers and sisters in the Assemblies of God. And I was working as a youth and Christian education director for an entire region of churches in Chicagoland, Wisconsin, and part of Michigan. And I also had the opportunity to continue my education there at the Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago, where I earned a Master of Theology degree, a second master's, and then the PhD in New Testament studies. So the history of my life has essentially been running student ministries alongside being heavily immersed in academia. And now what that looks like for me is a dream come true. I run a large student ministry in Marietta at a big church called Eastside Church here and serve as full-time faculty at Point alongside Valarie. As someone in ministry, I want to tell you all that I deeply respect those of you who are engaging your education at Point University with an eye toward going into ministry. I don't want to exclude anybody here because I realize not all of you in the class are geared toward ministry, but I'm very cognizant of the fact that in the 21st century, you don't technically need education to go into youth ministry or into pastoral ministry. And yet I am so convinced that I am who I am and I have the advantages that I have in the world of ministry because of the educational pathway that God has allowed me to take. And so I just have tremendous respect for all of you for putting yourself under the rigors of the educational program at Point. And I already want to challenge you, those of you feeling that God is moving you into ministry, we have a brand new master's program, a master's in transformational ministry that you can move into right out of your bachelor's degree at Point. And I've been blessed to have been a part of the writing team of that program, and it is going phenomenal. And I believe it's unlike any other master's degree program in the Southeast. So I just want to put the bug in your ear to an early process to be on the lookout for that. Okay, well, Valarie laid out some of the overall contours of the class and the skills that you are discovering and honing. And so I thought I would just list 4 of those skills and talk very conversationally about how those skills affect me in the day-to-day world of ministry, youth ministry, and teaching. I've chosen 4 that you've covered in your course: close reading, writing skills, library and research skills, and then 4th, time management. I would love for this to be a live session because it always seems a little formal or artificial just creating a video. I want this to come off as conversational, even though obviously it's a monologue. But this is just my experience and my experience alone. So first, Close reading. I am on a lot of airplanes. I don't know about you. This year I actually, unfortunately, achieved medallion status on Delta. The funny part of that being that I hate to travel, and yet it seems like I'm on a flight a couple times a month, speaking somewhere or doing consulting or something of that nature. And something I've noticed in flying over the years is that 10 years ago, everybody had something to read on their flight. They had a book, they at least had a magazine. You looked around and that was the only thing there was to do. You didn't have internet on flights, you didn't have in-flight entertainment. Obviously your cell phone didn't work if you had one of those big brick phones at the time. Now everything is different. I look around now and people are either playing video games or watching movies or television shows on flights. And what this says to me, and I know that I'm going to make a wide leap here from airplanes to real life, but I truly believe that that's simply one indicator that literacy is dying in our society. Let me show you one book that comes to mind. If I had to give you one book to read, probably my favorite book that I've read over the last 4 or 5 years, it would be this book called Empire of Illusion, The End of Literacy and the Triumph of Spectacle by Christopher Hedges, who's not a pastor, but he did attend Harvard Divinity School. And the book basically makes the case that much like the Roman Empire in the New Testament period, the art of literacy is dying in American society. And I believe that calls we as point graduates, we as Christian leaders, regardless of the field that we are entering, to be committed to literacy and sound thought. And I would suggest to you that the church and Christian circles represent the last bastion of sound ideas, sound thinking, sound thought in society today. Certainly, we saw this in debauched form in our election just a few weeks ago. The idea of fleshing out and articulating ideas, and thinking through them and debating them, has given way to simply shouting matches, name-calling, and spin. And I hope that your educational pathway at Point really gets you passionate about the basics of reading. I just determined years ago that reading would become a fundamental habit of my life, and that means that I've had to basically sacrifice TV watching and video games. I love video games, and I threw my PlayStation away several years ago because I realized after I had kids I had to choose. And as reading has become the habit of my life, I just can't tell you what it's done for me as a person and what it's done for me as a pastor. I don't simply mean reading within your guild, but reading novels, reading fiction, reading history. We as Christian leaders can and should be the most well-read folk in society. And I guarantee if you do that, you and the people that you lead, even if they're middle school students, will reap tremendous benefits that are hard to see in the short term. So I heard Bill Hybels at Willow Creek Church up in Chicago say years ago, read all that you can. And I continue to take that to heart, and I wish I had more time to read because reading is power. Okay, second skill that you are talking about in your course that just has a daily import into my life as a teacher and as a pastor is writing skills. Quick little story, a friend of mine who was a pastor in Chicago, he got new business cards made, and I never will forget it because you can't make this kind of thing up. He was so pumped about these business cards, and I guess he got a good deal on them or something. So he showed me the card and said, Josh, what do you think about the card? And the card had the name of his church, and it said Ministering with Excellence, and excellence was spelled with one L, which of course I informed him of, and we had a big chuckle about that. And yet there's something about that can be a microcosm for people in Christian leadership positions. I assumed that the world of digital communication would make us better writers as a whole. In fact, the opposite has proven to be true. I found that we are sloppier writers because we are so used to sound bites and text messages and everything brought down to email. Here's another thing that I've seen. Regardless of your field, as a student, as a professional, as a youth pastor, as a Christian leader, if you can write adequately, if you can write well, if you can articulate ideas on paper, you will be a leg ahead of everyone around you. If you understand email etiquette, if you know how to produce newsletters, letters, communications to parents, to your followers, to your constituents. It's a quick way to set you apart. And it's just another daily habit of mine. I make sure that my email etiquette is appropriate. I don't send off one-sentence emails. I address the person. I say thank you. I sign my name. I hope that your professor in this course can attest to that, because I really do make an effort, and it gives me respect among my parents, my constituents, that I otherwise wouldn't have. So even if you don't consider yourself a writer, you can do the basics of honing those writing skills in just day-to-day communications with people, even if those communications are electronic, that will raise your esteem in the eyes of those around you. Third skill that you're talking about in the class that connects to my daily world, and this one will surprise you, library and research skills. Something that I'm sure you see, that you've talked about, is the way that the internet revolution has changed the contours of how we get information. The problem is the internet is a treasure trove of junk. And I found that by knowing the right places to go to get good information about what I'm trying to present or what I'm studying allows me once again to be head and shoulders above others. So for me, when my world is doing a lot of research for sermons and for lessons, and so for lay audiences, I go beyond looking up Wikipedia or looking up commentaries online. And first, I've built my own library over time, which is a part of your college education, getting that started. And as you just saw, I can kind of draw from it at will based on the things that I've read. But secondly, I know the databases to look for that Point University gives me access to. The one that I love is the ATLA database, because I can find scholarly journal articles on topics in Bible theology and ministry. So I want to challenge you, move beyond popular sources as a Point student to scholarly sources. And you'll get all the popular stuff anyway in the scholarship, and you'll get better ideas, fresher ideas, more incisive and current language about where things are in your field. So I've just found that to be really helpful. And finally, number 4, time management. All the things that I've just shared that are so critical to my life and my success, reading, writing, knowing how to research and how to get the best information, they give you over time the ability to focus on stuff. And focus, like reading, is a lost art in our society. One thing that I've learned over time is the mind is a muscle. And at 39 years old, my sense of focus is miles beyond what it was at 19 years old, or at 21 years old, or at 25 years old. And simply the discipline of shutting the cell phone off, shutting the door, not answering the phone, and deciding on a day-to-day basis, for this project, I'm going to focus for 1 hour, from 9 to 10. And I'm not going to be interrupted. Everything's going off. I'm not checking email. Then for this project, I'm going to do this for 60 minutes. I give myself brain breaks, and I don't work based on my email inbox. And so finding ways to manage your time where you're not being managed by the distractions of email and cell phone will put you miles ahead as a student, as a leader, and as a professional. Thanks, guys, for giving me the opportunity to share for just a few minutes. Take it all with a grain of salt. Again, this is stuff that works for me. I want you to take the ingredients of this wonderful class that your professor is leading, put them together in a way that works for you. You'll get a lot more done. You'll get stuff done quicker, and you'll get stuff done much more effectively. Merry Christmas, everybody. Blessings.